By now you've all heard about Deerfield, Illinois, where they're banning virtually every semi-automatic weapon. And if they're not out of the town, out of the city, out of your homes by a date in January, or June rather, you'll be subject to $1,000 a day fine. Now, I don't know who these people think they are, but they are really forgetting what country they're in. But what I want to talk to you about this issue is what guns are allowed. See, that has come up. That's not a new concept. In the 1939 United States versus Miller, it was a case brought. Two men were arrested for transporting short or sawed-off shotguns, and that violated the 1934 National Weapons Act. And I don't know for sure how it all came about, but they were the defendants. But the court decided that having a sawed-off shotgun was not covered in your Second Amendment rights because it bared, and I'm paraphrasing, it bared little resemblance to anything you would use in a militia. Now, Anthony Scalia, in the 2008 decision, the District of Columbia versus Heller, where basically they were banning all guns. He made some important decisions came out of this from the majority, and he wrote the majority decision. And one was that you do not have to belong to an active militia to have your Second Amendment right protected. And Miller, the United States versus Miller, the 1939 case, is mentioned quite often. And in it also says, besides the fact that the sawed-off shotgun bears little resemblance to anything you might need in militia, it said the type of weapons that would be protected are those commonly in use at that time, whatever time they happen to be. Now, see, that in itself is and especially, contrast to the banning of the M16 and other weapons of that sort, automatic weapons, or what are called assault weapons. Now, you take that, for example, and you take them out of the marketplace, and you say, well, the weapons that are allowed are those commonly in use. Now, see, Anthony Scalia does mention, he says it sort of in this way, that like an M16, you would think, and I'm paraphrasing, would be the perfect weapon for a militia. Now, of course, he is right, but he's not. I can't tell that he's arguing against that ban. And as far as I know, the case has never been brought to the Supreme Court about the Second Amendment rights, about banning a weapon like that. Is it against the Second Amendment? I don't know if it has not. Maybe you do. You can let us know if you do know. But at any rate, he makes a comment that seems like that'd be the best weapon. But he refers back to Miller, which says, it'd be the weapons which are commonly in use at the time. Again, let's go back to M16. If it were allowed to be sold, then would it not be the most commonly purchased weapon? I'd say it would be. I'd say it would be. Now, if we're talking about a weapon like a Star Trek phaser, all of a sudden you was able to invent that. Now, you might make a case that that's not a weapon that's common in use by anybody, and you might could make a case about that. But and then again, I don't know if you even could do that because in time, see, I think the whole concept of banning weapons is the problem. See, any kind of arm. See, that's where the fallacy is. Once you get into that slippery slope, you get into a fallacy. And I think that is where our problem lies, and somehow or another that needs to be reversed. Because first off, a militia is part of the Second Amendment to be able to be part of a militia, but not having to be part of a militia to have your Second Amendment rights protected. That's part of it. But it still is the ability to be able to form. That's all part of it. And you can't do that if you have weapons which would be military weapons, which you would be the military. You can't have weapons banned, especially any kind of that is an arm, something you can carry. As I said one time before, if you're talking about tanks and aircraft, that's a different thing. There's no way you can apply that to the Second Amendment. But having arms that you can carry, see, that is the problem. All these high-minded judges, these intellectual types, or academic types, I should say, the academic types. I don't know about the intelligent, but the academic types, they get in these debates. Well, that's not a weapon. They wouldn't expect you to have this type of weapon. Well, how do you know what they would expect it? That's free market forces. They had what they could afford, what was available. That's plain and simple. What they had was what they could afford and what was available. And we can't start playing games like that. We need to stop.